Hi, I'm Tyler Holmes, a solution engineer at AllCloud. Today I'm going to teach you a simple way to help prioritize your initiatives if you are working on a roadmap for your marketing org. This works for anything that you need to prioritize, but the world of marketing and especially Salesforce Marketing Cloud is one of the most vast areas of technology and process in business today, which gives you infinite possibility, but also makes it pretty tough to prioritize what your business really needs. And each business is different. There's some, of course, some best practices, but make sure you're nurturing your prospects, for example. But nobody can tell you beyond that what the right way to do that is. Should you be creating complex journeys, simple ones, build a mobile app to create a community of prospects, use SMS to access that thing that's in everyone's hands nearly 24/7? The easy answer, obviously, is that you should try all of them. But I don't know about you. I've never worked for a company that has infinite resources, so we were always having to make targeted bets. So in the infinite world of possibility within the Marketing Cloud, I'm going to teach you a fun and effective way to gain buy-in and prioritize your bets. All right, so let's get going. So first step, don't make the mistake of starting this process in a vacuum. Coming up with a roadmap to anywhere with only the marketing team involved is a recipe for disaster. More brains are always better than one or several in your marketing team, depending on how large your team is. But especially more brains with different vantage points. So you can pull in the sales team, you could pull in the HR team, you could pull in your tech team, kind of whatever makes sense, but don't go it alone. It's a quick way not only for disaster, but also to kickstart the typical sales marketing back and forth about marketing has bad campaigns, sales isn't following marketing's lead. So bring in people that you normally wouldn't bring into a brainstorm. It certainly helps. You'll get some different ideas and interesting ideas that you'll never expect. Either way, it's going to give you a lot of room to think about what people are seeing within the org and help you to prioritize the things that you need to get done. So step two is obviously, you need to get in a room with a purpose. There's a ton of resources out there for how to run an effective brainstorm, so we won't get into that in this episode, but come in with a clear goal and really lay that out for the people that you're bringing in to do this brainstorm. They need some guidance and they need some direction. What are you looking to accomplish? So direct the room and come up with a good list of priorities around the thing that you are trying to develop a roadmap around. So, whether it's this nurturing campaign or something else, make sure that they understand what it is that they should be brainstorming about. You want to have good ideas, and all ideas, the cliche, there's no bad ideas. They should all be accepted, but make sure that you're giving them that clear direction. So step three, after you've had this brainstorm, you've got a bunch of ideas up on a whiteboard. The next step is take a few rounds of weeding out the less strong ideas. Notice I didn't say bad ideas, just less strong ones. The goal for this is to get the ideas prioritized down from the big list to a smaller list. There's no right number, but usually less than 10 should move on to the next step, which we'll talk about in a second. So this is a quick step. Don't belabor it. If the group feels comfortable voting with their hands on the ideas they like, do that. If there are execs in the room, make sure to vote privately so you get the real feeling, not the herd mentality. People should have a few votes here. If there are ones that are tied or that people feel passionate about and they haven't quite made that cut, give them a couple minutes to advocate for their idea to the group to sway people. Don't do this for every idea here. The next step, you're going to literally put your money where your mouth is, but make sure that people feel heard and they're able to advocate for the thing that they feel passionate about. If there's a few there that are on the cusp. So step four. This is kind of the fun part. We've done this for lots of different clients in different capacities and for different reasons. But essentially, you're going to vote and put your money where your mouth is. So you're going to pass out at least $20 in dollar bills, preferably real. It actually makes a difference. We've done this with Post-it notes. We've done this with other things, but real cash kind of makes an impact. So tell the group they have $20 to spend on whatever idea they feel strongly about. Make sure the ideas are written down somewhere that the cash can get laid down on. So write them down on a piece of paper and put them down on a table. And your team can spend $20 on one idea, spread it around. it's up to them. They can advocate to the group to garner more money for their idea or several ideas. They can band together to have more support. The idea here is that you're going to hear some really great reasoning, as well as see what people are really passionate about. So don't step back and just let people pass around their dollars. Really listen for things and write it down, because you're going to hear some things that even ideas that may not move on to the next round or be prioritized this quarter or this week or this month, but you're going to hear some great reasoning and things that people are passionate about. So this can sometimes take a long time. So make sure you've budgeted enough time to really allow people to do this well. You're going to continually weed out the less popular ideas if you've got too many ideas. So you're going to see maybe some of them aren't going to get any budget. So you can take those away and you can kind of reallocate the dollars and go at it again. But the idea is, you know your team and how many priorities they can handle. So if you're going to select 2 or 3 or 5, just make sure that you understand, not only what your team is capable of handling, but also the time frame that you're working for. So, having 10 ideas that you're voting for and trying to put in for a week's worth of work, probably not the best idea, but maybe for a quarter, maybe. But in general, I like to keep it to somewhere under 5, usually. Hopefully you're doing this for a little bit of a longer time frame, but it can work for whatever, and we've done it for longer or shorter time frames. So now that you have your short list, write down with the group what success would look like. If this was successfully built, implemented, launched, whatever it is that you're working on, in this case, we're talking about a potential nurture campaign and how we're going to go about doing that. Make sure that you write down what success looks like. Make sure that it's measurable. Make sure that it's time boxed. You want to be able to look at whatever the metrics that are coming back to you and be able to decide whether something is successful or not. And whether it's successful or not, obviously you want it to be successful, but an unsuccessful campaign can be just as instructive as a successful one. So make sure that you understand what it is that you're looking for prior to launching something like this. Now, depending on how much time you've allocated for this exercise, if you're at a retreat somewhere and you've got a ton of time to do this planning, you could move on to a planning stage. You could break up into groups and start to look at how are you going to execute whatever it is that you've landed on. It's ideal to have the same group in the room if you can swing the time, but if not, you could skip this step for now and plan to come back to it later. What you don't want to do is leave this room, though, without this next step, which is assigning users. You can tell that I'm a Salesforce consultant here. Assigning owners, excuse me. If you assign owners without planning, it's now the owner's job to assemble that group later and report back on the plan. Again, time box this. When does that owner need to report back? This is key. You have to drive the forward progress with good milestones. So make sure that these owners of however many different priorities that you've prioritized, they understand that, hey, they need to come back within a week with the plan, or 2 weeks, or whatever that ends up looking like. They need to assemble, again, a cross-functional team. Shouldn't just be them in a vacuum building out whatever this plan looks like. So this is, a pretty basic plan here. It's pretty high level, but it's a process that will not only help you prioritize, but also build consensus and goodwill when you're assembling this team. Not only does your marketing team understand what the priorities are, but your sales team does, your HR team, your tech team, whoever it is that you brought in on this, they've all bought into this. They've all been a part of the process. So when these things launch or when they're being worked on, or when you need to pull people from these other teams, it really helps to have that buy-in from these other groups. As marketers, we have a lot of distractions, a lot of potential priorities to tackle. But if we spread the team a mile wide and an inch deep, we end up just drowning in a very small amount of water. So chunk your work out in a time frame that makes sense for your team. Like I said, this process is best for long-term planning. Think a quarter or more potentially. But like I said, we've also adapted this for shorter time frames. And if you're used to working in an agile format, this process might be very similar to you or very familiar to you. as you prioritize before each sprint. So regardless of the time frame, giving your team a target to shoot for, a time frame to hit it by, and real measurable success outcomes will give them the focus and buy-in, like I mentioned, that they need to achieve great things. All right. Well, thanks for joining. Hopefully you got something out of this. Wanted to mention, All Cloud, we do have a quick start for the Marketing Cloud. Done a lot of projects on this side of things, and regardless of whether you are just making your first foray into Marketing Cloud or you're a seasoned vet, there's a lot there and a lot that we can help with, whether that's running this exercise or just helping you to launch your next campaign. Love to talk to you. If you want to, talk to us a little bit more about what the possibilities are out there, we'd love to hear you. And thanks again for joining.